as the historic shutdown could be over as it enters its 41st day. Yesterday, 8 Democrats broke with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer in a sign that they were willing to compromise to try to reopen the government while those negotiations do continue. And joining us now to discuss this and more headlines on the Hill is our Washington insider, Armstrong Williams. Good morning to you, sir. You know, you called it and said we would soon see the government reopen with enough Senate Democrats to agree on some kind of a CR. Tell us what's happening on the Hill right now.
Well, listen, the sort of bypass these greedy insurance carriers to get the money directly to the consumer. The fact that everybody who's fired, federal employees, will get their jobs back, and everyone will get their paycheck and also their past benefits. And you cannot consider firing any other federal employees until January 31st. That was enough for Democrats. And also Chuck Schumer, believe it or not, needed a lifeline. He had to hold for the progressives that he's beholden to, but behind closed doors, Dick Durbin, voting with the centrists, indicated they were ready to move on and stop hurting people for right now for no reasons necessary, because they won the elections on last Tuesday. And so it's just time to resolve this and move on to real issues and issues that this shutdown has caused.
What does this mean, though, ultimately for Chuck Schumer? Clearly the Democratic Party not falling in line behind him anymore. What changed?
Common sense and people yelling at him. You know, there's a possibility, there are rumors that this could be his last hurrah that he may, as Nancy Pelosi did, announce his retirement.
Yeah, we keep hearing that too. And I got to ask you about this story that kind of popped up over the weekend, an unverified story, by the way, about the January 6th pipe bomber who placed pipe bombs outside the offices of the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee. Everyone saw this video. We've seen this video for almost 5 years now. This happened just before the events of January 6th. And again, nearly 5 years later, there is still no suspect in custody, Armstrong. The FBI, the DOJ had no problem quickly finding those January 6th suspects who entered the Capitol. Why do you think there has not been an arrest yet on this?
It's very sensitive. And the fact that the DOJ and the FBI has not given any credibility to this, they have not also said, they've not declared that it was not true. There's many things that the story has gotten wrong. There are a few things that the story has gotten right. They want to make sure before they make any announcements on this, because not only does it involve Capitol Police, it involves the CIA, the FBI. They want to make sure they dot all their I's and cross all their T's. It's just that sensitive.
You're inside the U.S. Capitol building right now. What does it say, though, about the security of our nation's Capitol when someone could do this, you know, plant pipe bombs, obviously meant to cause death and destruction, and get away with it now for what's almost been 5 years?
You're assuming that the bomb was planted to detonate, not considering that it may have been a ploy to further malign the right-wing extremists as if they planted the bomb.
Interesting.
It was never intended. You just got to think deeply about this.
Okay. And
yes,
And by the way, very quickly, looking back at Election Day, we know places like New York and New Jersey are not a bellwether for the midterms for the rest of the country. But what were some of your biggest takeaways?
Is that the Democrats held on to their blue states that Trump never won before. And in some of them, they barely held on. And also in Minnesota and Minneapolis, the radical Somalian extremists who was bidding for mayor lost, which tells you that Minnesota has not lost all its common sense. They still put America first, and that was a good sign. And so, you know, we move on. These elections are elections, and anything within a week can change the dynamics of it. The voters are very fickle. We'll just see what happens. The midterm elections, Jan, is a long way off. Anything can happen.
That's very true. All right, sir. Washington insider Armstrong Williams. Great to see you there inside the Capitol. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.